right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of The Common Theory. And as always now, I'm here with my man Kunks, and we have something very exciting for you guys this evening. In fact, we have the winner of RIW here with us. Yes, no spoiler alert. You all know Clay did it, and we have him here, and we're going to be questioning everything he did and asking, and we're going to be picking his brain. And yeah, this man is getting interviewed from top to bottom. Yes, the world has made a full circle, and it's his turn finally, and we will be going in triplicates with everything with him. I'm excited to have the opportunity myself to be doing this with him. It is a privilege, to say the least. We got to start with the meat and potatoes, with just your guys' day and everything like that. Kunks, of course, as one of the co-hosts. How was your weekend? How was your day? How's everything been for you?
It's been a pretty good weekend. Just nice, normal, boring weekend. Nothing really to complain about. Just relaxing from the craziness that was the week before. But Clay, I wanted to say congratulations. Now we actually get to swap places.
Yep.
And,
yeah. But with that said, I think we obviously know why we're here and how awesome your weekend was. Clay, can you elaborate a little bit more though? Like, how was the weekend? How was your event? How was the opportunity?
Got on a plane, traveled to Livonia, Michigan, Detroit suburb, hung out with some PDH folks, won a tournament. I flew back. I won a tournament.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. You guys. Well, Chris, you were there last year. We had 44 people last year. This year we only had 28. However, we did have some hardcore gamers show up in uniform this time. So a little bit different experience. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome to hear. But with that, let's start hitting you with the questions. Let's start hitting you with the interview. Yeah, this is your turn for a change. And once again, I have the privilege to be the one actually doing this. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I hope you guys are excited, because we're going to be poking and prodding throughout Clay in his brain. So I cannot wait. As one of the competitive RC members in the community, you went to this larger event. You had the opportunity to play. And your exact wording that you always love to say in so many of your different videos, a lot of your content is, meet me on the battlefield. I'm here, let's play, let's stop the conversations. I'm here, I'm a different entity now. I'm on the battlefield, right? How was it? You did it, you did the thing. You met them on the battlefield. So what do you have for someone else that's doing the thing? What do you have for yourself that did the thing? Hit us with it. Talk to us about it.
So the meet me on the battlefield thing is something familiar to both you and I. We were both leaders in the service, and one of those mantras is lead by example. And even though prior to this one win, I probably had a string of 20 or so losses, it's picking yourself up through that adversity and moving through that, and just taking one step and moving and leading by example, and keep trying. So this, I hope, is not the last time that I show up in the winner's circle. It might not be the next time we have an event, but I know it'll happen again. And for those who want to emulate this, just pick yourself up, dust it off, get back in the ring. That's how you do it.
It sounds like a little bit of perseverance, right? Like you've really, I was there with you in the first Sanctuary series, which was over
a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it was well over a year ago. And, you were with me there in the finals, and excluding that, you've kind of bricked upon different performances and stuff like that.
Super hard.
Yeah, not
super
in a
hard.
negative manner and stuff like that, but just, throughout different decks you've decided to play. And, me and you have been always incredibly vocal about decks we play.
Mhm.
and you've kind of switched your tune on that just a hair, nothing too wild. But do you have anything excluding the perseverance, like the fact that it took you a little bit of time to get to where you are now,
Mhm.
but what do you have for other tournament players that want to somewhat emulate what you've done, or even like, how did you even
Yeah.
do this? You know what I mean? Like,
So the main thing previously, you bring up a good point in the fact that, like previously, I was pretty adamant about professing what I was playing ahead of time. A lot of that I felt as a community leader. I'm doing the air quotes if you can't see me. As a community leader, I feel like trying to necessarily push an agenda like, hey, we're trying to get this, attraction for this style of deck or this commander or what have you. And I was doing that for a while, and the changing of my tune, as it were, it was related directly to, I realized that maybe it wasn't the most competitive thing for me to announce weeks in advance that I'll be playing a specific deck. And because I have a certain level of integrity, that I'm going to show up with that list. So I started kind of masking what I was playing. And on top of that, so speaking to that second part about my advice to other players, so I'm in the process of tuning my battle box down to a core set of lists that I am super familiar with and super comfortable with. It might not be known to most players currently, but I'm an old Weavers player from way back in the day. I've got 1,000 games with that deck. I can pilot it in my sleep.
you're kind of hitting a different point we're gonna get to.
Yeah. But
we didn't get to the deck yet. But yes,
but to that point, I'm not saying bring anything to a tournament. What I'm saying is the thing that you bring, you better be comfortable with it, because you're going to be engaging in stressful situations. You're going to have a lot of distractions, and you need to be able to move through those lines, whatever lines you have, combat, what have you. You need to be able to move through that without really second guessing yourself, because that's where you get in trouble. So comfort.
You mentioned your battle box, which is something that people who've known you know that you have. Could you go through what you currently have in your battle box? Because I remember we discussed it. I think the last time you mentioned it to me was like a year ago, when we were adding gut to it. So what do you currently have in your battle box, and what do you have in it, and do you use it often to practice for larger events?
So that's actually great, because because we were doing a lot of the MagicCons, circuits and, visiting, I had like 10 lists in my battle box. I've since pared that down to 4. So I'm working on Crackling Drake, Sir Conrad, TPI, and Weavers. That's the 4 decks that I have in my battle box right now. So
I did not hear Tati over there, but we'll circle back to that in a moment.
Flame!
I didn't hear any aggro decks in there either.
No, not yet. So, I mean, whether or not I rebuild back up to 10, still unknown. I did a lot of experimentation back in the day, so maintaining those lists was, part of that process. And now I'm just trying to pare down to some core lists. I do have an aggro list in the mail from TCG Player.
Ooh,
Wink.
Very nice.
So yeah, just trying to rebuild, kind of regroup, and find that comfort again.
Well, let me ask you this. So you won the event, and you won the event on Weavers. So we didn't touch upon that yet, but obviously he's here because he won the event, right? That's why we're here, guys. We are the competitive guys, and we are with a competitive player, and they won a tournament, right? That is why Clay's here to begin with. And as someone that is a competitive player, and we are having more and more and more tournaments, like just every year we continue to get more events. I know you're not a big fan of this terminology and whatnot, but to many of the people of the
I'll allow it
scene, you were playing a top tier deck. What should other tournament players consider to either fight against a deck like this, or should they even consider playing a deck like this? Like, because this is the first time that you specifically have played Weavers in
In
an
a tournament.
event.
Mm.
And I mean, you thrashed them. I mean, I watched a few of your games, and it was very impressive watching you do the thing, cycle. Your play patterns are clean, simple, not simple in a negative way. It's a simple line of search, cycle, so on and so forth. What do you recommend to other tournament players if they would like to either pick up this list or play something different that could potentially beat you?
That's super tough, and I'll tell you why. So let's go down the gradient of players. So if you have a really experienced CPDH player who is aware of the meta and knows how the various combos interact, then absolutely pick up one of these top tier lists and try to jam with it. Absolutely get some games in. Behoove you to goldfish as much as possible because you'll learn some of those weird nuances that you can pivot off of, which is like super important because guess what? Those things come up. If you're a new player and you are new to PDH, maybe this, like a Weaver's deck or something like that, will be a tough ask because
really?
you have to know, like, for example, to use our dear sister Gretchen's a slower deck. I would actually recommend Gretchen to a newer player versus a Weaver's deck where you almost have to apply pressure from the go. And those types of decks require a little bit, I don't want to say a higher skill set, but more of a higher knowledge or deeper knowledge of the meta. So that way you can see those little gaps that you can try to shoot as the turn order goes around. Gretchen is a little bit more forgiving on that because it's a later game deck.
Okay, that's understandable. Franklin, what do you got for Clay?
No, so in with that, I remember you saying that Gretchen was a little bit more forgiving because drawing 2 cards off of 7 mana is a lot. But as soon as I heard, I was also thinking, drawing 2 cards off of 8 mana is even more. But that is a very interesting take that you would say that Gretchen is a little bit slower than Weavers, which it is. Going into that, was this an update version of a version of Weavers that you had previously before, or is this something that you took at from the development of what happened earlier this year?
As far as I know, I'm one of the first people to start incorporating Vigean Graph Mage into a list. And I looked at when I built my my list, it was December of 21. So it started off as an exact copy of Yalaran's list way back in the day. He's the one that championed Weavers in the beginning when the format was 6 people, or the meta was 6 people. I didn't really like the arrangement of his list, so I kind of modified mine to try to incorporate that Vigean Graph Mage because at the time we didn't have Step Through. We had the Vidalcan tutor guy, but that really wasn't played a lot back then. I know, it's weird, right? So just over time, it's one of those lists that I have kept working on, pulling, finding the pacing of it. And then actually from a timing perspective, before Gator and I started working on Conrad, this and Tatiova was another thing because I was unemployed at the time, so I had all day to think about it. I would spend weeks on end trying to put together like new pieces for the Weavers list. And from there, I just kind of sat it down. And then last week I picked it up again. So
it's like riding a bicycle. That happens.
Well, I mean, but that does go about what you were saying earlier, Clay, right? Like what you were saying specifically was your comfort level. Mm-hmm. And if you're comfortable with a deck, and it sounds like you've had this deck for umpteen years at this point, and if you've had this deck for this amount of time, your comfort zone, riding your bicycle, right? You're riding it into the sun, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, is that how you felt during the event? Was that your feelings while you were playing these games? Like,
A little bit. I was constantly aware of my outs. Now, what I was keenly aware with this event is that when you try to combo for the first time, or if you keep a bad hand, but if you're trying to combo for the first time and you get interrupted, there's actually a few dead turns in there where you're not really doing much. So navigating through those turns where you're doing nothing and you're watching all the action happen in front of you, and trying to play through your outs, that actually happens quite a bit. So I think it's in those moments that you need to keep your composure and really think through how you take tab A and put it into slot B and all of that stuff.
Where your outs are, essentially, right?
Yeah, what your outs are.
It's really exciting to see you finally achieve this goal, especially in-person event. It's actually amazing. Do you feel that there was a different sort of metric for the fact that you were in person over the fact of an online event?
Well, I want to say it's because I'm 260 pounds that I just kind of lean over the next player and be like, "Hey," that's what I want to say. I just flex my calves and be like, "Don't do it, bro." No, there's definitely politics hits different in person versus on camera because you do have body language and you can see. It's very much like poker in that regard, where you can actually play the player versus playing the game. So I don't know if it would be necessarily easier, but if you're able to engage in that kind of thing, it likely is. And for me, one could say that it took an in-person event for me to actually win because my skill set is people.
It's really interesting because you did well. You were at one point, I could be saying this completely wrong, so please correct me if I'm incorrect with this, but you were the top seat of the event for the first 3 rounds, were you not?
Yep. So. Yeah, it was in the middle, because there's 5 rounds. By the end of the 3rd, going into the 4th, I was the only one with 3 wins.
Yeah, you were the undefeated seat.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the standings, and it was the top 3 had 3 wins, and then 4th was 2x.
So, yeah, I lost. That's really interesting because I looked at it when I got back home and was able to dig through the event. So I lost my last 2, but of the top 4, I'd beaten 2 people in the top 4, which is why.
Then based on standings, you would have been top seed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting though, right? Because even on that metric, right? You've played against these people, and you were kind of you were doing very well throughout the event. Did your opponents actually grasp the
danger in front of them?
Yeah, what you were doing, because you're I saw, and I'm using this as an example because I witnessed this through the commentary and through the Twitch chat. You went for a win attempt. You're win the game. And they're haha, no. The whole table did a fist bump. During the fist bumping and everything, you're step through, go get another card that says win the game. They're fist bumping on stream. You visibly see them doing it. Literally punching.
I tutored while they were distracted.
They see you do it, and you're get this, and then 2 turns later, you put the card into play, and then you won the game. And I was and the whole chat, the reason I bring this up specifically, the whole chat was oh, you're supposed to kill the combo player. No one knew he had that. And I was the last guy in the chat going, he tutored that when he went to Freed.
Mm-hmm.
The whole table saw it. I really would love to know maybe some conversation there, where maybe your politics were involved, or did they just forget?
So the Kutzel player, Jason, who was sitting across from me, who was doing most of the damage to me, it was apparent that they had run themselves. He had an interaction or a chain of spells earlier in the game, kind of used up some of his interaction. So he was running low, and then through that exchange, they used up some interaction. So after that was all finished, and I tutored for the wizard, he looks at me before he gets to his combat step, and he says, do you have it? And I go, I promise you, I do not have the win in my hand. I had the Graph Mage, and I had a Dispel. I did not lie. Now, what he didn't know is the top card of my deck was a Landor producing 2, and that is the card that I needed, which I had a 14% chance of drawing, by the way, astronomically low. So I did the math on that today. So he asked me if I had it, and I told him, no, I can guarantee you 100%, because I was intentionally tilting my cards to where the camera could see what my hand was. I was doing that for the crowd. So I have camera shots that, I was telling the truth. But also in that moment, I looked at him and I said, you're doing the dirty work, right? You're attacking me, and that's fine. You do what you do. But you see that 17-17 monster over there? Yeah. That's coming for you next. So if you don't put up something to block, you're probably going to die. So we'll go down together. That's fine, So, and I kind of put it in that way, and he goes, you know what? You're right. So what I did was I provided him with an objective truth that was plausible, and it turned the game. So
that's the beauty about in-person play. You can just have them look at the table and go, hey, you're going to die.
You're going to die.
But it's
very
honest,
real.
But it's honest, though, right?
Yeah, you're not lying. You're, like you said, you're giving them an objective truth. You will die.
So regarding, and I know we didn't want to dive too much into politics, but allow me the opportunity. What Magic players don't realize, because Magic players are the best players, right? What Magic players don't realize is there's more than one truth. You have 3 people sitting at the table with you. So there's at least 3 other perspectives in their mind's eye with their known information that they believe something is true. Sometimes that aligns with what you're thinking. Sometimes it does not. So all you have to do is introduce something that's plausible that they can witness with their own eyes, and maybe that's enough.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I do that all the time, but like when I do that, I'm like, hey guys, like ironically the exact same scenario you're saying. Like, I'm like, we're dead to that. Like, kill me.
Gator's the king of that over here.
Like, kill me, bro. Well, if I kill you, here's a counter spell. I'll counter if they do something, but they're going to attack me and I die. So I appreciate the honesty, and I appreciate the truth there, because it's not a lie. You know me, of all people, I'm a big hater on people that deliberately lie. I do not appreciate that. Telling the truth or pointing a different direction, it's not a lie, because you are telling the truth. So
I see it as the player who's engaging with you is blinded by these other facts. So I'm just the prophet who's like, ooh, look,
pointing the direction.
Look, child, look.
So I gotta ask you, and I gotta have you elaborate on this one. This is my next big question.
Yeah.
Lay lore. Like, hell yeah. Like, will you play it again? Like, do you want to play again? How did you feel playing it? Mm-hmm. Like, did you like it? Were you happy to use it? Were you happy to play it? I know it's been such a long time. It kind of leads into the next question that I know Franklin was going to ask. Sorry, Franklin, for stealing your thunder a little bit.
Yeah, that's all right. How many smiles per hour does
smiles per hour, but Simic combo?
Yeah.
That has not been
You're going to love this. So I just recently interviewed this guy, real turd of a guy. And he actually had a real nugget of truth in the fact that Laylor Weavers is a really, has the opportunity to be a fast deck, and it really teaches people to respect, those early points of interaction, right? So that has always been true about Weavers. It will always continue to be true about Weavers. And the answer to your question about playing Weavers is that, the meta is going to shift. you
Of
won,
course.
I won. Everybody's going to be locked and loaded and ready to go, turn 4, turn 5 with some sort of, punch you in the face removal. And Weavers will cool off for a little bit. But then once people relax a little bit, you hit them with the Weavers again, make them respect the turns. And then, it's just this vicious cycle going back and forth. So will I play it again? Hell yeah, absolutely. Will it be the next tournament? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. I've got, like I said, I got some stuff in the mail coming that I'm working on with a buddy. And if I'm comfortable enough playing it, I might debut it at the next one, if not the next one.
Well,
Got to keep it fresh. Yep.
what
Go
you're
ahead.
describing is a healthy meta, though, are you not? Like, so your description point is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play this. I'm going to win one thing. Then these people are going to come in and they're going to hose me, and then something different is going to win because of this and its attributes. And then that's going to move to the next piece of the pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to continue to move around the pizza pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll eventually get back to this piece again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that that's like somewhat a true statement that we're eventually just going to continue to revolve around the circle?
Oh yeah,
it's
loop? It's definitely a pendulum for sure. Because like when a fast deck wins, all the other fast decks suffer from the swing back. Maybe this is the opportunity for Abdel to kind of fill up a spot, to kind of be that one step off the pace of those faster decks. So that way they pay the price and then Abdel comes in and reaps the reward. So yeah, it's looking at little things like that, like trying to figure out where we are in the process to kind of pick that golden deck and get those golden matchups and have a little bit of luck, because there is a little bit of luck involved with this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think probably me in the future, me and Abdel probably just gonna stay really good friends. It's still a fun deck, and I literally did pilot it in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The last tournament, I don't know, like something about turbo combo just feels good, feels right. But if I'm gonna get hosed for it, I'll get hosed for it.
I mean, if you don't, I mean, that's the thing, you keep doing it till it feels good or they learn, right? So
yeah, Gator yells at me all the time. Figure out your windows, and then I'll rip off my pants.
All right, we're canceled.
You saw my look of disappointment.
I'm sorry, RC.
So let me hit you with these last two questions, Clay. So I have two for you, and I would like you to elaborate on both. The first one is, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to give to the competitive scene? Tell us what your thoughts are, what you think you could assist with.
That is Jesus, that is a tough one. So this is something that I don't do often. And like I said, in the pre-show, sign up for Patreon to get the pre-show. Like I said in the pre-show, I asked my mom if I could gloat, and she said that was okay. So we're going to do that. I don't know. I'm not necessarily currently in the mode of developing more of a gift to the meta. And I know that sounds, God, I feel horrible for saying that.
That's been your MO, for the record.
Well, and so, I mean, I fought the good fight and I got the meta broken open. So that way, people could, now this was a few years ago now, I fought for, an open meta, a truly open meta, not get gatekept by anyone, where there could be experimentation and, results driven meta. So that way, if something performed well, it stuck around. If it didn't perform well, it didn't stuck around, which led to the whole CPDH.guide thing. And it's one of those things. I never insist that what we're doing with .guide is a predictive thing. It's more of I'm an anthropologist by, degree and trade. So it's always a historical view. But obviously, if under these conditions, these decks did well, then maybe there's an opportunity for them to do well again. Yeah, so there's the truth right there. It just came to me. So I've done I've done a lot for the community over the last couple of years.
You have.
And maybe it's time for me to just kind of work on my own play stuff. Now that said, I mean, with my role, my official role, there's a lot of stuff that me and the boys are doing behind the scenes to build community and stuff like that. That never changes. But Clay as a player might be taking a little time to indulge in Clay as a player and a brewer, which is something I haven't really done in a little bit. So I think that's the honest truth at the moment.
Well, can I revert back to something you said earlier and kind of bring it into what you kind of just alluded to right now? You opened up today with saying your comfort is key, right? And you haven't been successful with other decks that you've played. There's potential there. I'm not saying this is true or fact. You could tell me whether I'm right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But your comfort with Lore Weaver, because you also said you played this deck umpteen years ago, which is totally believable because I believe the second deck I ever played against you with, you were playing Lore Weaver. This was back in like 2020.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Something absurd. Very long time ago. This is back in the try-hard days and just much long time ago. It seems, I'm just jumping to certain conclusions here, that you have learned this deck. You've played this deck for such a long, enormous amount of time, of course, with, changes and things like that. Your comfort, you were so comfortable with the deck that you went into this event not worried, more relaxed than you typically would have been in other scenarios. And you kind of plowed through your opponents. And whether that's right or wrong to say, do you believe that would help other newer players achieve a goal where you go, if you like this deck, play this deck for a longer period of time, gain that comfort zone with it, and then continue to push this yourself within the meta, within the tournaments, then you will have a higher chance of being able to take down an event by being comfortable with your deck. Would you disagree with that?
Oh, no, that's 100% true. In fact, as we've seen earlier this year, no, I'm not advocating for a patchwork automaton at all. But if you bring something super weird that nobody understands and you are an expert in that weirdness, you'll likely have some success by virtue of those two things crossing. You'll have it maybe once, but you'll have some success doing a thing that nobody understands, because Magic players, they seek to root themselves in things that they know. And if you're just doing something like super awkward or different, I wouldn't say it scares them. It's weird in the fact that it doesn't scare them. It's like, oh, you're just doing stuff over there, and until you're dead. But like, pick a list anybody is known for. They return to that list because of comfort. There is probably a little bit of internal bias about like, well, I think this is the best deck, yada, yada, yada. But also I would suggest that that's also a reflection of comfort, because the more comfortable you're with a deck, you're going to have a heightened affection for it. So,
I mean, with that said, Clay, we're going to put you in the super hot seat now. I feel like you've kind of been in the hot seat. And I know me and Franklin talked about this on the pre-show, and we're going to put you in the super hot seat. Tell us anything you want. Pick any subject you want. You could talk about mid-range. You could talk about the dandelions or purple. Whatever you want, I want you to hit the competitive community with stuff.
Here we go. Archetypes.
All right, and we're off.
Okay.
A prerequisite for everyone.
Yeah,
it is a very old conversation that keeps getting brought up from the deck.
So, okay, let me put this to bed.
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Archetypes don't exist.
All right, perfect. I'm good with that.
So the problem with archetypes, and the reason why archetypes stick around, and to that degree, the proactive, reactive, nomenclature from CDH, it's because it breeds familiarity. Now, the majority of our players coming into PDH are not CEDH expats. So They're actually from 60 card or from other like Commander and the mid-range aggro control. All those archetypes are familiar, and they easily explain kind of what the deck is trying to do. Now, for all of us who are in franchise players, all right, who are you playing? Gretchen? Boom. I know what you're doing. We just know what is happening by the commander. So the really real is that archetypes really don't mean anything because there's already assumptions built in to those commanders that you're choosing. Whether or not it's mid-range or it's adaptive or something like that, none of that really matters. It just matters who you're talking to as you're trying to bring them in to be an enfranchised player, and then eventually cast away those labels. There you go.
Yeah,
How about
that's perfect. I wholeheartedly agree because at this point, so actually in the CPH guide video that you did, in the comments I wanted to say Abdo's a mid-range deck. It just has a combo finish.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Kedis is a control deck with a combo finish.
It sounds like you're a teacher teaching your stuff, is what I am hearing.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, it seems like you've done a great job. Because,
maybe.
Well, I mean, if we look at the facts,
look at the community
right?
you brought up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at the facts, right? Like, we're here with you doing your interview, and we're here talking with you, and you're here with someone, or we're here with someone that has done the deed, spoken about the thing, and has brought a lot of things full circle. It's, the only regret I think you have, I did pronunciate that properly, is that you were a dirty Simic player. Dirty.
No, I mean,
that's what he's been from the very start.
Had I picked up Gretchen specifically for this event, I think I'd likely feel that way. But because it's always been in the bag, the club bag, it's always been there. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel that way. I mean, I've always been known somewhat as a combo player anyway, but I'm not afraid to experiment.
Your little knack.
Yeah, so.
That was a good pun. Come on.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I was trying to focus, gotta focus. I mean, regarding the community, I don't presume to take any credit. Recently, my goal was only ever to set it free and see where it went. Everybody involved, from the tournament organizers to the high level players like you guys, everybody is contributing to what that new vision of the meta is, even without my, direct involvement. I don't really have to talk to people anymore. I mean, if I don't want to, I choose to, but you guys can remember when I was, common connoisseurs and triards, I was heavily involved in moderating that community and driving a narrative and opening up possibilities and all of that. And, one of the 50 catalysts for me leaving that to Ryan is I felt like I didn't have to do that anymore. We had you guys and the other guys and the gals and the peoples and if anything, Clay's on his brewer era, selfish brewer era, screw you guys. I'm just going to do my own thing, as a player anyway.
Well, we all know Weavers is just a bad deck. Don't play it in tournaments. You heard it here first.
Yeah, don't forget. Don't you people ever forget. on a mulligan, right? On a mulligan or your first 7, if you intentionally target Freed from the Real as a keep, and you want a 1 mana aura and a 3 mana aura, you have a 1 in 2,000 shot of making that happen. Don't you ever forget.
So what we're hearing is hold the bolts.
Yeah.
Hold the bolts. That's what I always hear. Hold that bolt to save everything you got.
Yeah, it depends on the turns. I think you and me could argue. I still think that turns 1 and 2 are some critical tempo plays, but this is super high level, stuff.
For sure.
Because players keep specific hands for specific reasons, and they indicate those reasons within those first 2 turns. And if they're automatically jamming an untapper or something like that, that's an indication of what they have in their hand, whether that's a Malcolm or whatever. And just that little tempo play is enough to trip them up to where you can actually shift your focus if you need to. Now, once we get into turns 3, 4, 5, and if you're like bolting a land untapper out of 6, okay, don't do that. Stop it.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about Weavers. There's like a million land attackers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's your interview, I'm going to just let it ride. I don't technically agree with most of what you said, but I understand what you're saying. So I don't technically disagree, but I do understand where you're coming from. I believe
this is where Clay comes back in a couple of weeks for a debate.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going with it.
I do really actually agree with what you're saying overall, because of the way the format has presented itself over time. So I don't think you're coming from a negative place. I think you're actually coming from a very positive place.
It's a strategy. It is just a perspective and a strategy, and obviously it's untested.
You've obviously played for such a long time, right? And I definitely want to make that known, right? Like, you've been here for, like, the point of what we're saying here with your Weavers list is you've been playing that deck for this much time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The average player in our format has been playing for this much time, right? Which is not comparable to what you did. And I believe, just like you've already stated several times, your comfort level you've just been here for such a good amount of time, and you're starting to show your success and just your knowledge. And knowledge is key. And I do believe that players, and correct me if I'm incorrect, knowledge is power, and players knowing what your deck can do, whether it has faded in the past or not, is key to winning. Do you agree from the competitive side of the meta? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you as a player are responsible for figuring out the puzzles that lay in front of you. So if you play against something that's known to you, Abdel Blue, Abdel Black, Abdel Red, whatever that is, if you have experience with that, you're able to dedicate less bandwidth to trying to figure out that specific puzzle and dedicate more to that thing that you've never seen before. But yeah, it's your responsibility as a player to try to know the unknowns as you're being presented to them in whatever pod composition, and that's ultimately going to lead to having greater success.
It's one reason why you're an RC member. You have a vast knowledge of the format. I mean, that's not a false statement, right? Like, that's you have to have a vast knowledge of the format. You have to know what it was like back in the day. Like,
my day.
I mean, you've been there for the Ristic Study days, right? Like, that is a comment.
Oh, speaking of the Ristic Study days.
Oh, yeah.
You saw the Ristic Study day on Saturday.
Yep. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that poor guy. Most people that come and convert don't realize there's a website dedicated to the format. So
sorry to interrupt. Could you elaborate, because many people may have not watched that stream and have no idea what you're actually talking about?
Yeah. So in the first round, the televised, the featured match, there was a young man that had previously interacted with the store's Facebook page, asking, like, if there was anything they needed to know, are there any banned cards, yada, yada, yada. Because the Facebook page, it said, Uncommon Commander 99, is commons, or 98, whatever that is, and didn't really specify that there was a ban list. I'm not sure. I didn't check on it myself to see if the home base was actually listed as a website there, but their assumption was, there was, if it was common, it was legal. So wrote up their cards, submitted their deck list, and got caught. It was turn 3 playing a Ristic Study. Folks that were in the room were talking about how excited this person was to have an on-curve Ristic Study. They had called the judge in and gave the person a game loss, and then asked them, this poor guy, asked them if they wanted some help in making their deck legal. He was just so embarrassed that he just left the store. That poor guy didn't know that those 2 cards were banned, and entered them into a deck, into his event. So
I mean, it happens. It is what it is. Like, if you don't know where the resources are, you don't know where they are. So this is your time to plug where the resources are.
Sweet. So if you want to learn about rules of the format, that's pdhhomebase.com. There is a listing of cards that are banned for both multiplayer PDH and dual PDH, in case you're interested in that for, some reason. Some people are. It's big in Europe and the Philippines, so in Italy and that sort of thing. So not to disparage those folks. If you like information on competitive data, more historical competitive data, that's cpdh.guide. There's filterable. You can filter by date. You can filter by organized play, open play, which we really don't collect anymore for obvious reasons. You can even do it by commander and by player. I wonder who's up there at the top. Any guess? Anybody? Bueller. The gator bait? It's all right. It's all right. I had 3 wins prior. I was at number 51 or something like that. I got 3 more wins. That puts me up at 6. So I'm up there in the middle of the pack now.
I'm pretty sure that my record's like somewhere right there in the middle too.
So all I need is just a couple more wins this year, and I'll be catching up to you, bro. So.
I'll make sure to lose out all the way. But no, with that said, I mean, I want to thank you so much, Clay, for being here with us. Really, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you talking with us and everything. But with that said, Kunks, do you have any final words for Clay? Anything else?
Yep, Clay, you're the living embodiment of plant your seeds, give it some time, and then you'll watch your garden grow. Watch all the flowers bloom.
Wow. That is incredibly sweet. You know I'm married, right?
Too bad.
What does that mean?
Thank you for that.
But with that, take us home.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Remember to like, subscribe, join our Patreon so we can go put up some more behind-the-scene clips where we talk about bidets, placement of shoes, everything else we spoke about in the pre-show.
And balloon animals, yeah.
And with that, good night, everyone.